In a region where coal is king, powerful explosives and enormous machines tear down mountains.
Lord, that looks pitiful.
And that's nothing but corporate greed.
With major political support, companies defend this mining.
We want to put it back better than it was when we started.
But as a way to get cheap energy, for many, this price is too high.
And quit blowing up our mountains.
Among the oldest on Earth, these mountains were never worn down by glaciers. Their steep slopes and narrow valleys have been sanctuaries for a rich diversity of plants and animals, including hundreds of species found nowhere else on the planet, thriving here in thick hardwood forests and rushing streams. Rising above the eastern coastal plain, the southern Appalachians stretch for hundreds of miles, enveloping West Virginia, a state known as a symbol of Appalachian landscape and culture. For generations, the tough and independent people living here have identified with these mountains, many earning their living deep inside them, digging for coal. Coal has always been a blessing and a curse in these communities, the foundation of their economy, but a dangerous and contaminating industry. Today, coal is an even bigger economic force, with production increasing nationwide. More than half of the electric power in the United States comes from coal-fired generating plants. And there are growing coal exports to China, India, and other hungry markets. Demand is driving coal mining into new deposits, with more destructive technology. And in these mountains that always seemed eternal, a special place that sheltered quiet lives in the valleys, technology now threatens to change this landscape forever.
The only thing left here is me on my mountain.
For more than 200 years, Larry Gibson's family has lived and worked on Cayford Mountain.
And it's small, but it's only me, you know.
In the valley below, the town of Cayford is now only a memory.
So there's a creek right there, you see. On the other side, it was these houses right here. And then the company store was right here.
What happened in Cayford is a small part of what's happened across West Virginia's coal country. Many underground mines played out and closed down, costing too much for too little coal. What's left in many places are abandoned mines.
The mouth of the mine right here.
That's the mine shaft right there, right?
Yep. That's the mine shaft right there.
So that water's coming out, and what is it carrying with it? You say it's acid?
Acid and iron and lead and everything else that it has back in the abandoned mine.
But the coal industry was not ready to abandon Cayford Mountain altogether. There was another way to reach the rich coal seams that still remain here.
So this is another coal seam.
Right.
How many coal seams are on this property?
There's about, they told me 39 seams of coal, see? I mean, look at this, you know, if you can pick it up by hand off of here.
Gibson and his relatives have small cabins on one peak of Cayford Mountain. Only a few wooded acres they refuse to sell.
Most of the people don't understand the connection between the people and the land. You know, we probably had more love for the land than we did the mother. When my mother gave me birth, these mountains gave me life.
Now, the place they call home is almost completely surrounded by this. Mining companies started blasting and leveling this area 20 years ago, and they've never stopped. From the edge of Gibson's land, mountains that once towered over this location have vanished.
They've been here just maybe a little over 2 years. Give them 2 more years, and them mountains you see right there nearest to these won't be here.
This is mountaintop removal mining, a giant step beyond an earlier method called strip mining along the contours of mountains. Layer by layer, mountains are blasted apart by giant explosions. Huge machines haul away earth and rock, dumping it into the valleys. When a seam of coal is exposed, it's scraped up and carried to processing centers. Then there's more blasting and hauling and scraping to reach still more layers of coal beneath, sometimes more than 300 meters below where they started, finally reducing the mountains to this. Opponents of mountaintop mining claim more than 2,000 square kilometers of mountains have already been leveled, and more than 1,500 kilometers of healthy streams completely buried and thousands more damaged by rubble pushed into valleys, what are called valley fills.
It's the worst thing that's happened to Central Appalachia in all the history that I know.
Cindy Rank heads the West Virginia Highlands Conservancy.
When people come and actually see what's happening, I think they're just overwhelmed with the enormity of it all. You just can't imagine those changes happening anywhere else.
Critics claim these mines not only destroy natural habitat on mountaintops and in valleys, but also cause flooding and contamination of headwaters.
They blew the mountaintop off, and they put it into the valley that made up the headwaters of this stream.
Maria Gano's land in Bob White is at the bottom of a valley fill, below a mountaintop mine. This is what happened here after heavy rains in 2003.
We got 4.5 inches of rain in 4 hours. The stream literally ran 20 feet deep, and it cut a trench 20 feet deep and right at 70 feet wide.
Because the mountain is now stripped of vegetation and topsoil, she says, instead of absorbing rainfall, it now funnels stormwater straight down the valley fill to her home. And she says the stream coming down from the mountain is now contaminated by runoff from the mine.
I changed water in my fish tank. I had a 55-gallon fish tank. That was kind of like my hobby. And changed the water in that tank, and overnight my fish died and everything in my tank turned green.
And that was water from your
That was water from my drinking well. People's moving out hand over fist, and most of them's not bought out, they're pushed out.
The town of Blair was once a place that prospered because of coal mining. More than 300 families lived here. Now there are fewer than 50.
Well, you're looking at, this was the main part of Blair, right here, the center of Blair at this time, back in this time. And
underground mines have closed and the jobs have disappeared. But there is now a mountaintop mine above Blair, and the dust and noise from explosions at the mine are driving more people to leave this town.
Yeah, this was a place that you couldn't sleep at night. The machinery running all night long. A fresh snow could come in the middle of December or January, and within 4 hours the snow would turn black.
Charlie Bella and Bill Ailshire spent their working lives in the coal mines, and they understand the need to mine coal.
I know we gotta have coal. I mined for 27.5 years, and I retired from coal mining.
But they say mountaintop mining is far different from what's been done in the past.
Used to be, you could hunt these hollers, mountains, but after they do all this strip mining or mountaintopping, they won't even let you on the property.
They need to go back to the old contour mining where they can put everything back, put the topsoil back, and let decent vegetation grow on it, hardwood timber again, and still have the mountain there, not leveled out.
They say they're going to put it back the way it was. You can't put it back the way it was once you destroy it. And if you go back, if you could get back there and look at it, you can see. If we had pictures of it before it was done and after it was done, you can see that it'll never be back the way it was.
Mountaintop mining like this is now feasible because of new technology, supersized machines, and massive amounts of explosives. A huge area like this can be mined with only a few employees. But when it first became popular during the 1990s, mountaintop mining faced serious restrictions under U.S. federal law. Regulations banned mining within 100 feet of a stream and prohibited dumping rocky debris into valleys. But after President George W. Bush took office in 2000, his administration adopted a policy of relaxing environmental restrictions on industries, including coal, and the growth of mountaintop mining has exploded.
It's time for our government to quit dealing with special interest groups.
Opinion polls indicate there's still wide opposition to mountaintop mining in Appalachia, but only a few activists are speaking out.
We're proud of the fact that many generations of our family stayed here because our roots are so deep. This is what we love. And we don't want anything more than to just be left alone. You know, don't poison us, don't poison our children, and quit blowing up our mountains.
Opponents are still filing lawsuits and lobbying the state capitol, seeking ways to impose limits on a practice they say has gone out of control.
Because the technologies have advanced so much that the laws have been twisted and loosened to allow the technology to do what it can do, rather than the law controlling how that impacts the land and the people. It's just backwards.
A lot of people grumbles, but what can you do? There's nothing you can do. You can't fight these big organizations.
Coming up, will this landscape ever be the same? Is it possible for the coal companies to restore what they destroy?